That's a clown question, bro.
Hi, what's up on you?
So I'm gonna kick some dirt.
He gets on base.
Just a bit outside.
I'm not the type of player that's going to be Johnny Hustle.
If you don't want me to watch the ball, you can go get it out of the ocean.
And welcome back to the show to be named later, part 2 of episode 38. Hope you enjoyed our Ted Williams part of the episode. Now we are talking about the 1995 Seattle Mariners, a legendary team, probably the most important, maybe the most important team, particularly for their city, ever.
Yeah.
And
so,
yeah,
going into 1995, this team was abysmal. They only had 2 winning seasons in their 19-year history. They had 0 playoff appearances, and their best winning percentage for a single season was .512. They just barely sniffed 500 a couple of times. That's the best thing they've ever done coming into 95. And 94 was not one of those seasons. In fact, they were 49-63 in the strike-shortened season. And the Kingdome, their stadium, it was falling apart. The ceiling tiles were falling onto the field. There's work that had to be done on the roof. 2 people, unfortunately, lost their lives trying to work on this, trying to fix the Kingdome. And it was very abundantly clear that the Mariners needed a new stadium, but it would have required public funding, and it was extremely unlikely that a vote to build the team a new stadium with public funds was going to pass, because obviously the public wasn't really on their side, because why would they be? Like, they had nothing exciting on the field other than Ken Griffey Jr. Like, who wants to pay all that money for that team? So this was an important year for the Mariners because they were going to have to win the public over, and quite a bit of it. In the beginning of the season, the projections were that 2/3 of the public was going to be against giving the Mariners a new stadium. And to begin the season, they were very stable, if that's even, for lack of a better term, if that's even a thing. They defeated the Orioles at home on May 26th, which is in fact that they were recording this. And on that day, they improved to 15-12, 3 games over 500. They're kind of treading water and hovering. They have the 3rd best record in the AL West, and they're only 2.5 games behind the division-leading California Angels. So this team is contending. Like, it's worth paying attention to. However, the attendance for the game on May 26th was only 15,256 people. That is 25% capacity for a Friday night home game when Randy Johnson is pitching. Randy Johnson, at that point, was 5-0 with a 1.64 ERA, and he could only draw 25% of the crowd. Also, on that same May 26th day, Ken Griffey Jr., of course, like I mentioned, one of the main reasons why people even cared about this team to begin with, makes an incredible catch in center field. Chris, I believe we have the video, if you will play that.
The 3-2 pitch on the way, swing, and it's a fly ball, right center field and deep. On the run, Diaz and Griffey. Griffey up against the wall, jumps up, and he makes the catch and crashes into the fence. Griffey leaped right into the wall at the 380 mark, and he made the catch and fell to the warning track. Griffey just stayed on the warning track, and he hurt himself. Griffey dove into that fence. Alex Diaz showed everybody that he made the grab, but Griffey really hurt his left hand or his left wrist.
And he did make the catch. Oh, what an amazing play.
One of the best catches I have ever seen at any time.
I think that's the best one I've ever seen.
So, of course, an unbelievable catch. Like, that was on SportsCenter the next day. And it came at a cost. Griffey broke his wrist on the play and was sidelined for 2.5 months. The Mariners were playing for their life, and they needed to do it without their superstar, their superhero, the reason that people even watched the team to begin with. So, of course, you're going to need to have people step up.
Yeah, and who steps up? The best designated hitter in baseball at the time. You could argue best designated hitter of all time. Us Red Sox fans probably have an argument against that. But Edgar Martinez.
I would say it.
Yeah. Edgar Martinez slashed, in Griffey's absence, in 73 games, He slashed 361, 505, 627 for an 1132 OPS. Also had 14 home runs and 60 RBI. Almost had an RBI per game. Not every game, but per game. Also, Jay Buhner, kind of a more quiet part of the team prior to this absence of Ken Griffey Jr. He has a 925 OPS during this stretch, and also hits 16 home runs in 55 games. Not as many as Edgar Martinez. He missed most of June, probably with injury complications.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tino Martinez, the other Martinez, the first baseman, Tino Martinez, he had a 957 OPS and 21 home runs in 70 games while Ken Griffey Jr. was out. And, Ken Griffey Jr., great defensive player. It's kind of hard to replace that defensive ability. But Alex Diaz, who was the replacement for Ken Griffey Jr. while he was out, he actually did very well. He only made one error in this time, and it's not like, he was a safe player. I mean, he made diving catch after diving catch while Griffey was gone. And probably during the stretch in which Ken Griffey Jr. was out, probably the most bizarre ending to a game I've seen. Or was it the ending to a game?
Yep.
We'll see.
It was
An absolute bizarre play. You're gonna want to watch this on YouTube. By the way, if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to watch this video on YouTube. This is going to be a very visual part of the episode for the audience. Here's the most bizarre play maybe I've ever seen.
The winning run on third.
It's on the way. The critter squeezes on. It's down, but it's not going to be good, or is it? Yes, it is! And sliding around the tag is Rich Admiral. My, oh my! The Mariners win it 2-1. And man,
Wild way to end a baseball game there, for sure. And yeah, definitely bizarre. The Mariners, they're kind of, while Griffey is out, while their best player is out, they kind of tread water, but they're not, very good by any stretch. They went 36-37 while Ken Griffey Jr. was out. And when Ken Griffey Jr. came back, he didn't have necessarily his timing all the way there. And they lost 8 out of 15 of the games of the first 15
No,
games.
they lost on 8/15, August 15th.
Oh, whoops. All right.
It's okay.
So they lost on August 15th when Ken Griffey Jr. came back. And, after that game, there were 12.5 games out of the division, probably in a very familiar place as they had been in their 19-year franchise history. And they had 44 games to make up 12.5 games of ground. And, they gained that ground a little bit, but they kind of backed into gaining ground in a way. So the Mariners actually, from August 15th through September 7th, they went 11-12. It's not the best way to go about things, but the leader in the division, the California Angels, they went 5-17, and the Mariners, who were one game above 500 at 62-61, they ended up 6 games behind the Angels with 21 games left to play in the regular season. And also, this was the first year of the wild card happening. They were 1 game out of the American League wild card spot, so they kind of backed into a good spot for them. First time ever.
So now it's go time. The Mariners woke up the morning of Friday, September 8th, with a 6-game homestand ahead of them. Out of the 21 games they had left, 14 were home, 7 were away. So the schedule was in their favor. They were also 11 days away from the King County election to give them a new stadium. If the vote doesn't pass, the Mariners are going to be sold. And if they're sold, it's almost guaranteed that they're going to be relocating. So if there's a time to win over the fans and keep the team in Seattle, it's right here, right now. September 8th. The Mariners have the Kansas City Royals in town. The Royals, keep in mind, are right with them for the AL wild card. The Mariners win 4-1. Randy Johnson improves to 14-2 after pitching 7 innings of 1-run ball. Luis Sojo hits a 2-run home run go-ahead shot for the Mariners in the third, and the newly acquired Norm Charlton records the save. However, the Angels beat the Twins that day 9-3, so the Mariners are still 6 games out, and they are now in a tie with the Royals for the wild card spot. September 9th, 10 days until the election. Time's a ticking. The Mariners beat the Royals again, 6-2, with Andy Bennis going 8 innings, allowing 2 runs. Also, Tino Martinez hits a 3-run home run, and Buhner goes back-to-back with him. But the Angels beat the Twins once again 6-5. They're still 6 games out, but the Mariners now lead the wild card spot.
That leads into September 10th, where they close out the series against the Royals, and they sweep the Royals with a 5-4 victory. Joey Cora gets a go-ahead double in the 8th to secure that victory. Norm Charlton, I'm assuming, probably closes that out. And finally, the Angels are able to lose, and they lose to the Twins 9-8 in extra innings. And the Angels actually kind of beat themselves in a way. That last run against the Twins was allowed on an error, and the Mariners are finally gaining some ground. They're now 5 games behind the California Angels.
September 11th, 8 days until the election. The Mariners lose a 12-10 slugfest to the Twins. They blow a 6-3 lead after giving up 9 runs in the 7th and 8th combined. And the Angels beat the White Sox 4-1, so now we're back to square one, back to 6 games behind. September 12th, 7 days until the election. The Mariners rout the Twins 14-3. Jay Buhner hits 2 home runs. Mike Blowers and Dan Wilson also go deep. But the Angels beat the White Sox 3-1, and they're still 6 games out. They are also a half a game out of the wild card spot to the Yankees.
Yeah, they are not in an ideal spot on September 13th, which is 6 days prior to the election. And also, you have to consider getting down 4-0, which is what they ended up doing. They were down 4-0 in the bottom of the 7th and had an 11% chance to win the game. But the Mariners, in their 1995 fashion, come back. Mike Blowers hits a game-tying home run in the 7th inning, and that was after Jay Buhner hit an RBI single. And in the 8th, Tino Martinez comes up clutch and hits a go-ahead single in the 8th, and then Jay Buhner, to secure the victory, hits a 3-run home run to put the game away. Mariners win that game 7-4. Angels lose their game against the White Sox, losing 6-1, and the Mariners are back to being 5 games back of the pesky California Angels. Then on September 14th, it's 5 days until the election. The Mariners have an off day, and also the Angels have an off day. So an uneventful September 14th, and then they're back to action. Both the Angels and the Mariners are back in action on September 15th.
So now there's 4 days until the election. The Mariners hit the road to Chicago, and they take the series opener against the White Sox 3-2. Vince Coleman, their leadoff hitter, went 4-for-4, finishing a homer away from the cycle. He also drove in 2 runs, and he scored 2 runs and drove in the other one in the 3-2 win. The Angels get shut out by the Royals 5-0. So now the Mariners are only 4 games back, and they are leading the wild card chase 1 game above the Yankees. September 16th, 3 days until the election. The Mariners beat the White Sox 5-3. Dan Wilson hit a go-ahead home run in the top of the 9th. The Angels lose to the Royals 7-6. They gave up 6 runs in the first inning. 3 games back.
And then on September 17th, it's 2 days until the election. But the Mariners do not help their case this time, unlike a lot of the previous games that they played up to this point. They lose 2-1 to the White Sox, and it's not like they didn't get any base runners. They got base runners, but they left a lot of men on. They went 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position, but luckily the Angels were able to lose their game against the Royals, and they were still 3 games out of the division race, and they were also still leading the wild card race by 1 game.
September 18th, one day until the election. The Mariners are back at the Kingdome to face the Texas Rangers, and they win the opener 8-1. Edgar Martinez and Mike Blowers both homer, and the Angels get shut out by the Oakland A's. They are 2 games back. And now, September 19th. This is it. The day of fate. The Mariners are playing a Tuesday night game against the Rangers while the votes are simultaneously being counted and updated live on TV. And the story that I'm about to tell is being told through the eyes of Mike Gastineau, who is a Seattle sports media, who is in Seattle sports media as a radio host. He says, quote, "I went to the game and left in the 3rd inning because I was too nervous to watch baseball." He then goes to a local bar, which is packed with Mariner fans, and half the TVs are showing the game. The other half are showing the election results that are coming in. He said, quote, "It was like being in someone else's movie." So Mark McLemore from the Rangers hits a home run to put them up 4-1. The Rangers' win probability gets as high as 92%, so the Mariners had an 8% chance of winning this game at one point. While the Mariners are trailing, so is the stadium vote. The Mariners start to chip away. Griffey hits a solo home run in the 8th to make it a 4-2 game, and in the 9th, the Mariners are down to their final 2 outs of the night. Doug Strange comes in. And hits a go-ahead a pinch hit, game-tying home run. And later in extras, Griffey comes up with the winning run on.
Cook, taking a lot of time, is finally into his stretch. The 2-2 pitch to Ken Griffey Jr. now from Dennis Cook. Here it comes, and it's swung on and lined off the glove of the third baseman Ortiz. Here comes Strange. The Mariners win it 5-4. My, oh my! The Mariners are 1 game back of the California Angels as Junior hits a line drive right off the glove of Luis Ortiz at third base. And now they are 3 games ahead of the Texas Rangers. And baby, is this looking sweet. It's unbelievable. As Junior, for the 2nd time in his career, picks up a game-winning hit in the bottom half of an inning. The other one was the dramatic home run against John Wetland of the New York Yankees. And since that time, it has been something. The Mariners.
So Griffey hits that game-winning single, and all of a sudden, the vote starts getting neck and neck. It's dead even. And a few minutes before that walk-off, the Angels also lost in a walk-off. All of a sudden, the vote passes. People are hugging in the streets of Seattle, and the Mariners are saved, right? Well, not exactly. Mariners CEO John Ellis gets a phone call at 4 a.m. saying that the absentee ballots are now coming in. And, well, they weren't pretty. And in the end, the stadium vote lost by 1,082 votes. Despite all the efforts, the vote fails. But that doesn't mean it's all over. Hold that thought and stay tuned. We'll get back to it later.
Well, the Mariners on September 20th definitely helped their case. They score 11 runs on 20 hits, and they scored 10 runs over the first 5 innings. Ken Griffey Jr. hit a home run. Luis Sojo also hit a home run to go along with a 4-for-5 day and 6 RBI. That completed the sweep of the Rangers. The Angels, on the other side of the race, the Angels had a miraculous 6-run 9th inning, and it was highlighted by home runs by Tim Salmon and Garrett Anderson. But unfortunately for the Angels, the Oakland Athletics were already winning 9-0 at the start of the inning. So it was a 9-6 victory for the Oakland Athletics, and the Mariners are tied with the Angels for the division lead. Then on September 21st, both teams have off days again, and nothing obviously changes.
So just to recap, the Mariners made up 6 games in 8 days. That is unprecedented at a time where they needed it most. So now, it's Friday, September 22nd. The Mariners welcome in the Oakland A's for a 3-game series. The recorded attendance at the Kingdome, according to Baseball Reference, was 51,500. They nearly sold that dump of a stadium out because people wanted to see this team. And, well, the Mariners weren't exactly giving them a show. The Mariners were losing 6-0 after 3 innings, and the A's win probability was up to 94%. In the bottom of the third, Griffey led off with a home run to make it 6-1. Mike Blowers later doubled to make it 6-2. Luis Sojo walks and Dan Wilson singles to load the bases with 2 outs for Vince Coleman.
Base is full for Vince Coleman. Coleman hits a fly ball deep to right field. And Vince goes to fire! A grand slam home run for Vince Coleman. My, oh my! We are even at 6. It was Coleman's first career grand slam and what amounted to the biggest Mariner comeback of the year.
So that was Vince Coleman's 85th career plate appearance with the bases loaded, and it was his first grand slam. It was one of 5 home runs that he hit that season, but it was the only one that he hit with the Mariners because he was traded midway through the season. So he picked a great time to do it. The A's did unfortunately take the lead back in the 7th, but Edgar Martinez hit a game-tying home run in the 8th, followed by a 3-run home run by Alex Diaz to make it 10-7, and the score would stay that way for the rest of the game. The Angels lost 8-3 to the Rangers, boosting the Mariners into sole possession of first place. Now, this is completely uncharted territory for this franchise. Before 1995, the latest in a season the Mariners had ever been in sole possession of first place was May 22nd of 1994. And that wasn't even a meaningful first place. They were 19-23 with the 5th worst record in the AL, but the rest of the division stunk, so they happened to just be in first by accident.
Yeah, that's a pretty crazy statistic, pretty crazy thing to bring up there. And on September 23rd, the Mariners continued their absolute dominance. Randy Johnson, the ultimate example of that, goes 7 1/3, 4 hits, no runs, 3 walks, and the most astoundingly, 15 strikeouts in those 7 1/3 innings. 15 out of 22 outs were strikeouts. Jay Buhner, also spectacular, hit 2 home runs, and the Mariners ended up winning 7-0. And the recorded attendance for that game was 54,589. And on the other side of the race, the Angels lose again 5-1 to the Rangers. The Mariners are now 2 games up on the Angels.
Now it's Sunday, September 24th. The A's take a 6-3 lead in the 5th inning off a home run by Mark McGwire. The Mariners chipped away, and Edgar hit a 2-run double to tie the game in the 7th inning. And Dan Wilson hit an RBI single to put the M's on top, and Norm Charlton comes on to record a 7-6 save. After walking McGwire, he promptly gives up a 2-run go-ahead home run to Danny Tartabull, and it's now 8-7 A's. In the bottom of the 9th, Griffey lines out for the first out of the 9th, and the A's then bring on Hall of Fame closer Dennis Eckersley. The winning percentage is at 87% for Oakland. Eck starts his outing by walking Edgar Martinez, which brings up Tino Martinez, the other of the tandem.
Against Dennis Eckersley, as the Mariners trail 8-7. Here comes the pitch to Tino. Swung on and belted deep to right field. And that will be flying away. And the Mariners
Dave Niehaus in that video said, the most improbable game in our history. The Mariners are playing out of their minds like they've never done before in the 20 years that they've been a franchise. And now, when it matters the most, they're showing their true colors. The Angels, however, they finally won. They broke their 9-game losing streak, while simultaneously the Mariners were on a 6-game win streak.
So the Angels are planning to take that momentum into Seattle, into the Kingdome. On September 25th, both teams had off days, and the Angels obviously has said, we're going to Seattle to settle this division race, potentially. And on September 26th, the Mariners offense comes to play, no doubt about it, gets 6 extra base hits, and, with those extra base hits, Ken Griffey Jr. and Jay Buhner both homered. Andy Bennis, he had 7 1/3 innings of 1-run baseball, and the Mariners win that game and get a 3-game lead on the California Angels. And then on September 27th, the script is flipped a little bit. This time it's the Angels shutting down the Seattle Mariners. Chuck Finley, Troy Percival, and Hall of Famer Lee Smith shut the Mariners down, and the Angels won that game 2-0. But the Mariners still have a comfortable 2-game lead on those Angels.
So now it's September 28th. The Mariners are in Texas, looking to clinch the division for the first time in their history. Their magic number is 3, with 4 games left to play in the regular season. The game is tied 2-2 in the 8th. The bases are loaded with 2 outs for none other than the Kid, of course.
None other than the Kid. Who else do you want up besides Ken Griffey Jr.?
Pitch on the way to Ken Griffey Jr. and it's swung on and belted. Deep to right field. Get out the right ground ball. It is grand salami time. I don't believe it. My, oh my, what a shot by Junior, and he has never hit a bigger one.
So that would put the Mariners up 6-2, and the score stayed that way. They won. The Angels defeated Oakland 4-1, and Seattle's magic number was at 2. So now it's September 29th, and we got a stadium update. The final vote was actually tallied on that day, and the following is a statement from a Seattle Times article that came out regarding the situation. Quote, Mariners chief executive John Ellis tells King County executive Gary Locke that if the county doesn't come up with a plan for a new stadium within 30 days, the ball club will go up for sale. His original intent had been to put the team up for sale immediately, but Governor Mike Lowry and Locke convinced him to wait a month. So the Mariners were going to sell. Like, they were set on selling if this vote didn't pass, but all of a sudden, they're playing the best baseball of their lives, and the city loves it. Everyone's coming out to support the team, and the county's like, no, give it a chance. Let's see what happens. And, of course, there's now 30 days to decide if the Mariners are staying in Seattle or not. But for now, they got to worry about the on-the-field play to even determine the off-the-field play. The Mariners have a chance to clinch the division on this day with the win combined with an Angels loss. The Rangers are leading 3-2 in the 8th, and the Mariners get sac flies from both Edgar and Tino Martinez to take a 4-3 lead, and they win by that score. The Angels win 9-6, and their magic number goes down to 1. So now they can clinch with either a win or an Angels loss.
But on September 30th, the Mariners pitching did not come to play. They gave up 7 runs in the first 2 innings and ended up losing that game 9-2. Meanwhile, the Angels, on the other side of the division, they win 9-3, and that division lead shrinks down to 1. And there is 1 game left to play in the regular season for both teams. And on October 1st, the Mariners starting pitching folds for a second consecutive day, and they lose that game 9-3. The Angels, meanwhile, they keep winning. They win 8-2, and that means that there will be a tiebreaker game in Seattle to decide who wins the division. The Yankees already clinched the wild card, so it's win or go home.
It is October 2nd. The Mariners, it is huge for them to be in the Kingdom in front of their home fans. The Mariners were 45-27 at home during the season, so home field was huge for them. The recorded attendance for this game was 52,356. It is a 1:30 afternoon game on a Monday, and nobody knew that this game was happening 24 hours ago. Impromptly, the Mariners fans showed up in the masses. Randy Johnson versus Mark Langston, their records respectively 17-2 and 15-6. The Angels could not use Chuck Finley because he pitched the previous day. And it is a 1-0 pitcher's duel in the 7th. The one run came in the 5th in form of an RBI single from Vince Coleman. So the Mariners are up, and they load the bases in the bottom of the 7th inning with 2 outs, and former Angel Luis Sojo comes up to bat.
Now the broken bat. It's fair! Flowers has scored. Tino Martinez has scored. And they all have scored! And here comes Sojo! Save!
What you just saw was, at that moment, the biggest hit in Mariners history. You got to keep in mind, they're playing for their life on this day. If they don't win this game, they don't play anymore. And the public's probably not going to really care that much if they only gave them, that much of a run only to lay down and die in the first chance they got at some sort of postseason atmosphere. And Luis Sojo puts the game away with that hit. And the game was pretty much over that point because Randy Johnson, of course, was pitching, and he goes the distance, so to speak.
Now the left-hander ready. Branding iron hot. The 1-2 pitch. Kay inserted. It's over right over the heart of the plate. Randy looks to the skies. That is covered by the dome and bedlam as the Mariners now erupt. Everybody charging Randy Johnson out there, and the fans coming out on the field. Security's going to have a problem, but 19 long years of frustration is over, and the Mariner players now being protected by security. A fan almost clips Lou Piniella, and the Mariners now are going to have to be escorted off the field by security. But my friends, this is just indescribable.
An absolutely beautiful moment. The Mariners are going to the playoffs for the first time in their history in one of the strangest, most improbable ways it could have happened. Randy Johnson for that game, 9 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and 12 strikeouts, a game score of 82. Of course, that's that we went over a lot last week in our 0-1 Diamondbacks episode. And in the regular season, Randy Johnson wins the Cy Young. He goes 18-2. He leads the league in ERA with a 2.48, strikeouts with 294, ERA plus with 193. That means he was 93% above the average pitcher for that season. A whip of 1.045, a hits per 9 of 6.7, home runs per 9 of 0.5, and strikeouts per 9 of 12.3. That second the record at the time also. And the team went 27-3 in his starts. 34.1% of their wins came in Randy Johnson's starts. Also on August 11th, he was 7-0 with a 1.45 ERA and a 4.96 OPS plus against. the team won all 10 of his starts. And that was from August 11th on. And also, after 1875, he and Greg Maddux in 1995 were the only pitchers to finish with a 900-plus winning percentage, minimum 20 decisions. Edgar Martinez had the best DH season ever. He led all DH seasons since the DH was incorporated in 1973 per single seasons, in average with a 356, OBP with a 479, OPS with an 1107, WOBA with a 469, and weighted runs above average with 72.5. No one else is above 70. And second in weighted runs created plus with 82. Manny Ramirez beat him one season. And he finished third in the MVP voting that season. Jay Buhner, he hit 14 home runs in the month of September. He had a 909 OPS, which gave him fifth in the MVP. And of course, we're talking about Jay Buhner, so we would be remiss to mention the one time that he was featured in a segment on the one and only Seinfeld.
I can't believe it. He was so young. How could this have happened?
Well, he'd been logging some pretty heavy hours. First one in the morning, last one to leave at night. That kid was a human dynamo.
Are you sure you're talking about George?
You are Mr. and Mrs. Costanza.
What the hell did you trade Jay Buhner for? He had 30 home runs and over 100 RBIs last year. He's got a rocket for an arm. You don't know what the hell you're doing.
Well, Buhner was a good prospect, no question about it. But my baseball people loved Ken Phelps' bat. They kept saying, Ken Phelps, Ken Phelps.
Jerry.
So that, of course, is the legendary Seinfeld segment of Jay Buhner. Also, Jerry Stiller, the man who played Frank Costanza in that, recently passed away about a week or so ago on May 11th. Rest in peace to him. Thank you for the laughs. And, of course, that is the Jay Buhner segment. Tino Martinez hit 293, 369, 551 with a 920 OPS, 31 home runs, 111 RBIs, and a 135 OPS plus. Also, Mike Blowers, 96 RBIs on the season. Very underrated and impressive. So now you're going into the American League Division Series versus the Yankees, who, oh, by the way, were 18-4 after September 8th. That was the one team in the league that had a better record than the Mariners after that time. And keep in mind, just because you made the playoffs doesn't mean your franchise is saved. You're going to have to give your fans something to cheer about in the playoffs. You know, you're not going to win the public over if you get to the playoffs just to be snuffed out by the Yankees as quickly as possible. So you need to get something going.
So that leads to Game 1, hosted by the Yankees. And baseball didn't really know what they were doing at the time because they had the worst team host the first two games, which I just don't understand. And the Mariners were definitely at the disadvantage there to start the series. It's Chris Bosio versus David Cone, and David Cone is the reigning Cy Young Award winner. And this is Ken Griffey Jr.'s first experience of the postseason. And, you know, he's the face of baseball. So, you know, you have to wonder, what's he going to do with the pressure of A, the postseason, and B, the bright lights of the Bronx? Let's see how he handled that.
To me in spring training and said that I would have 3 hitters with 100 RBIs and 1 with 96, and none of them would be Ken Griffey Jr. I'd have thought you were crazy.
He couldn't get there because of the injury that kept him out of those 73 games. Rips it deep. Goodbye home run hitting the facade of the upper deck at Yankee Stadium. And it is a 2-1 Yankee lead. Folks, that was a shot.
Remember, we saw David Cone go in last inning and consult with Gene Monahan, the trainer of the Yankees. They were looking at the blister. The blister gives him trouble on the fork ball.
Griffey had a home run in the 4th inning leading it off. 1 for 3 in the ballgame. 4-2 Yankee lead. Runner at first, 1 down. Deep to right field. Way back. He has done it again. Goodbye home run. Ken Griffey Jr. said to his teammates, "Get on my back and I will carry you." He is carrying them in Game 1. 4-4.
Well, they were able to ride Jay Buhner the last few weeks of the season, but Ken Griffey Jr. said, you can ride on my back for the playoffs, and he's done it.
Not a problem for Mr. Ken Griffey Jr. Not a problem for the kid. Ken Griffey Jr. handles that spotlight very well, but unfortunately, those 2 home runs were not enough to give the Mariners the victory. Mariners actually gave up 4 runs in the 7th inning, and most notably on a home run by Ruben Sierra. And the Yankees ended up winning Game 1 of the American League Division Series by the score of 9-6.
So now we're looking at Game 2. It's an all-Andy matchup of Andy Benes and Andy Pettitte. Vince Coleman hits a solo home run in the 3rd to put the Mariners on top, but Bernie Williams answered him with a double to tie the game later in the 5th. And the tie didn't last very long as Tino Martinez hits a double in the 6th to make it 2-1. And the bottom of the 6th was led off for the Yankees by Ruben Sierra and Don Mattingly, who, by the way, Mattingly, his first playoff appearance ever in what ended up being his last season.
Benes and Andy Pettitte. Drill to right field. Ruben Sierra. Put the mustard on her, baby. Goodbye, home run.
Remember all the breaking balls we've seen on the outer part of the plate? Andy Benes knew that he got too much of the plate with that slider. You know, a lot of guys don't do this when they hit home runs, but then again, a lot of guys don't hit them that far and never get the opportunity.
A lot of guys don't hit home runs.
During the season, 44 RBIs and 215 at-bats for Ruben Sierra.
Don Mattingly. The fans want a dinger out of him. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the roof. Goodbye, home run. Don Mattingly.
And like Gary Thorne said, they might tear the roof off of that place at that moment. But the Mariners fought right back in the 7th with RBIs from Soho and Griffey to take a 4-3 lead. And Paul O'Neill then ties it 4-4 the next inning. So it's a back-and-forth game. And the score would remain that way for quite a while. So let's skip to, say, the 12th inning. It's deep into extras. Norm Charlton and Jeff Nelson are both dealing for the Mariners. Bob Wickman and John Wetland are doing the same for the Yankees. The Mariners are batting in the 12th. And, of course, Ken Griffey Jr., the face of baseball himself, steps up to the plate against John Wetland.
Griffey with an RBI in this game, 4 in the series. He drills it deep to right field towards the gap, 385 mark. Goodbye! Home run! He has done it again! His teammates were on board, and he delivered. Get on my back and ride it. It is a 5-4 Seattle lead as Junior delivers his 3rd home run of this series.
So, of course, the Mariners are leading now, 3 outs away from going into Seattle with a 1-1 series tie, essentially having home field advantage. In the bottom of the 12th, Tim Belcher is now pitching for the M's. There's a man on first for the Yankees with 1 out. He walks Bernie Williams and then gets Paul O'Neill to fly out. 1 out to go. First and second for the Yankees. And the Mariners have to get through the toughest out in the lineup, which is Ruben Sierra. Let's see how this at-bat was handled.
Registered a 5-mile walk over there. Swung on, left field. Diaz back, at the wall. Diaz looking off the top of the wall. 1 run in, Yankees can win it. Relay throw coming. Soho front of the plate, and they got him. It's tied up. The game is tied. Soho on the relay to take out Bernie
opposite way.
I know that wasn't a home run, but I feel like Ruben Sierra doesn't get enough credit for having one of the best home run trots of all time.
Yeah, he really spiced it up. He almost looked like Ray Lewis coming out of the batter's box.
Yeah. Also, one thing that doesn't really get talked about in this play, Alex Diaz made a huge save when the ball ricocheted off the wall and hit directly off his knee. If that hit anywhere else, that winning run probably scores.
Absolutely, yeah.
So now it's tied up and the game continues. Deep into extras, the Yankees bring on this young kid by the name of Mariano Rivera to make his first ever postseason appearance. Despite having a .551 ERA in the regular season and 67 innings pitched, this Rivera kid is actually able to get through 3 1/3 scoreless innings. And in the 15th, Yankees catcher Jim Leyritz comes up with a man on first with 1 out, trying to win the game for New York and put them up 2-0 heading into the Kingdom.
Belcher set. And the 3-1 swung on and driven to deep right. It is high. It is far. It is gone. A 2-run game-winning home run by Jimmy Leyritz. And the Yankees have won the game in 15, 7-5. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Leyritz is flying around the bases. He high-fives Strawberry. They're mobbing him at home plate. They're absolutely mobbing Jim Leyritz at home plate. He goes down to the ground. You got to see the Yankees. They're behind home plate. They got the biggest smiles on their face. You cannot believe how this team is reacting. A team that doesn't show much emotion is going absolutely ballistic. Jim Leyritz with a game-winning home run. What a moment at the stadium. This is one.
So as you just heard Michael Kay say, the Yankees that show no emotion, all of a sudden now have all the momentum, and they're showing it on the field. As for the Mariners, they lose a heartbreaker, the most brutal loss in their history. And now they got to go play for their lives again for 3 times in a row. You have to go 3-0 to keep your franchise alive.
Yes, and also one thing that should be said about this 95 Yankees bunch is, most Yankees teams are loaded with playoff experience. They did not have a lot of playoff experience. They had not been to the playoffs
81.
Since 1982 or something like that, or 1981. I forget. So, they were still, they're the Yankees, but they were still kind of playoff starved. So they still had that energy of a team who really wanted it. So it makes what the Mariners might be able to do even more impressive. So in Game 3, they go back to the Kingdom for the rest of the series, as Daniel previously mentioned. And luckily for the Mariners, they have their ace on the mound, Randy Johnson, and he's facing 1993 Cy Young Award winner Jack McDowell. And the game was scoreless until Bernie Williams of the New York Yankees led off the 4th with a solo home run to put the Yankees out in front. And now this puts the Mariners in a situation that was absolutely horrifying to them. They are now losing in an elimination game, and it's going to be hard to climb back from this. And, all this work that they've done, everything that they've put into this franchise, everything that they've done to try and save this franchise and save baseball in the city that they're playing in, might be all for nothing if they can't come back from losing in this elimination game. Making the playoffs, just getting there isn't going to do it for this city and this owner. And how they react to this, they're able to score. In the bottom of the 5th, Edgar Martinez leads off with a walk, and then hit the other Martinez on the team, the other Martinez on the squad, Tino Martinez, is able to come up to the plate and try and extend their season and get this lead against Jack McDowell.
They set up outside. Comes back inside. Look out! Put that baby on the score. Mariners lead it 2-1 on the Tino Martinez 2-run shot.
They are up 2-1 because of what Edgar and Tino Martinez are able to do. Then in the 6th inning, they score 4 more runs from RBIs from Tino Martinez again, Jay Buhner, Mike Blowers, and Luis Sojo. Randy Johnson pitched spectacularly, and the Mariners were able to win 7-4 and live to play another day.
So now it's game 4. Scott Kamianecki is pitching for the Yankees against Chris Bosio of the Mariners. And it was a rocky start. The Yankees scored 3 in the first and then another 2 in the third. It's 5-0 Yankees. The win probability is at 90%. Joey Cora leads off with a single in the bottom of the third, followed by another single by Griffey. And then it was time for the best offensive player in the league, Edgar Martinez, the greatest DH, arguably of all time, to do his thing.
Deep to left field, Edgar Martinez deep, put it up. It's 5-3 on the Martinez home run.
So now they're back in it. It's a 5-3 game, and the Mariners later tied the game after a sac fly by Luis Sojo and an RBI ground out by Dan Wilson. In the 6th, the game is still tied, and guess who's coming up to try and change that? Of course, it's none other than Ken Griffey Jr.
Okay. Ken Griffey Jr. coming up.
With that broken left wrist, he suffered slamming into the wall, right center field. Hit high and deep. Griffey's got it out of here. Oh, put it on the scoreboard.
The Mariners, who were down 5-0 in jeopardy of losing their entire franchise 3 innings ago, are now winning. They've come all the way back. They're on top of the world. They have all the momentum on their side. Anything that the Yankees had in New York with momentum, it's gone. Now they got to gain it back. Paul O'Neill hits a shot to tie the game at 6 in the 8th inning. Now it's the bottom of the 8th. John Wetland comes in. Vince Coleman leads off with a walk. Joey Cora hits a single. And then Griffey comes up and is hit by a pitch. Okay, it's not going to be him this time. Bases are loaded. The next batter, of course, would be Edgar Martinez, who already homered in this game.
And John Wetland one more time set. And here comes the 2-2 pitch to Edgar Martinez now. And the fastball swung on and hit to deep center field. Bernie Williams goes back, and it is get out the rye bread and the mustard this time, Grandma. It is a grand salami, and the Mariners lead it 10-6. I don't believe it. My, oh my. Edgar Martinez hits one off the tarp in dead center field of John Wetland. The Mariners have not only come from a 5-run deficit, they have taken a 4-run lead on Edgar Martinez's 3rd career grand slam home run. A fastball down the middle of the plate, and baby, he pickled it.
And there it is. That right there was the nail in the coffin for this game. So Edgar, of course, had 7 RBIs in this game. Chris, I'm about to read to you the list of people who had 7 RBIs in a single postseason game before Edgar did it. Are you ready?
Here we go. Let's go.
All right. And that's the list of people. I mean, incredible company that Edgar Martinez is joining.
I mean, the last guy you just mentioned, I can't
my God.
believe he's on that same level.
Exactly. Like, you would never think to compare Edgar to him, but he's really there.
Yeah,
so
he's up there with all those guys.
The Mariners win the game 11-8. They force a do-or-die Game 5 because it's a best-of-5 division series. So now here it is. This is the fight for Seattle. David Cone, Andy Benes for everything. In the bottom of the second, the M's had men on second and third with 1 out, but they flubbed the opportunity as Soho and Wilson both strike out. The game was scoreless until the 3rd inning when Joey Cora, a man with 8 career home runs to this point, comes up to bat.
And this one's deep. What's important is Cone gets him, and this one's deep to right field. O'Neill goes back. It's deep, deep, and Joey Cora hits a home run. The Mariners lead it.
That is an uncharacteristic move from Cora, but he did it when they needed it most. This is the most important game in the history of the Seattle Mariners, and I'm saying that for probably the 5th time in the last month, at least, probably even more. The next half inning, Bernie Williams draws a 1-out walk against Benes, paving the way for Paul O'Neill.
O'Neill hoping to sting the Mariners again. He does. Look out. O'Neill's got 1 out of here. Put it on the scoreboard, and the Yankees bounce ahead on O'Neill's home run. There is a tradition that perhaps started at Wrigley Field.
So now the Yankees are up 2-1. In the bottom of the 4th, Tino Martinez hits a 1-out double and later goes to third on a wild pitch to bring up Mr. Seinfeld himself, Jay Buhner, with a chance to tie the game.
Diaz lashes one, base hit. This game is tied.
So now it's tied up, 2-2. In the top of the 6th, Benes walked 3 consecutive batters, giving Don Mattingly an opportunity to give New York back the lead.
Don Mattingly coming up to the plate. Opportunity to take the lead. Bases loaded.
Slaps one into left field, down into that corner. It's fair. The Yankees will score. It's a ground rule double. Yankees lead it by 2. Don Mattingly's ground rule double to left field scores Williams and O'Neill, and the Yankees jump up 4-2.
So now it's a 4-2 Yankee lead. The Mariners have dug themselves into a hole. And oh, by the way, there are men on second and third with 1 out. They could very easily put this game away right here. Mike Stanley comes up for the Yankees. The first pitch is called a strike. Then it's a foul ball, so he's in an 0-2 hole. The next 2 pitches are balls. So it's a 2-2 count, and then the next pitch, Stanley fights off 2 pitches for foul balls. And then Benes throws another ball. It's a full count. Oh, by the way, the bases are loaded because the previous batter was actually intentionally walked. So now if Bennis throws a ball, it's a 5-2 game. Stanley pops up to foul territory, and the catcher is under it. 2 outs. Huge, huge out for the Mariners. The next batter, however, is no easier. It's Tony Fernandez, a man who had a 3.08 career postseason average entering today, as well as a 2.88 career average with the bases loaded. And also, he doubled off Bennis in the previous inning. So you got to be careful around this guy. And unfortunately, 2 pitches in, it's 2-0. Now you're in a dangerous situation here. It's 2-0. The guy has pretty much already has you figured out. So you got to throw one in there because you can't make it 3-0, but you also can't give him a meatball. So what happens? He fouls it off. It's a 2-1 count. Huge pitch, if you really think about it. Bennis then follows with another ball, and it's 3-1. It's a 3-1 count. And Fernandez hits another foul ball, once again loading the count. He then flies out to left field. Inning over, disaster averted. The score remains 4-2 on a huge end of an outing for Bennis. So then, in the bottom of the 6th, the Mariners waste a leadoff double from Edgar, and things are looking really bleak. Skip to the bottom of the 8th. It's a 4-2 score. David Cone is still going strong, and he retires Joey Cora for the first out of the inning. The Mariners are now 5 outs away from literal elimination off the face of this earth, essentially, and the Yankees' win probability is at 86%. So now Ken Griffey Jr. comes up. He needs to do anything to get this crowd going because we know how much home field advantage means to the Mariners. Like, they are so much better when the crowd is going, when the kingdom is amped up, and Junior, the face of the franchise, essentially has one more chance to give the fans something to cheer for. So here he comes. What's he going to do?
Deep to right field! Oh, baby! Put it on the scoreboard. The kid has done it again. Series for Griffey. It ties the record for the most in any postseason series with this man, Mr. October.
That's Reggie Jackson in the crowd watching Junior put on this performance. When he needed it most, he got it, of course. It's now 4-3. Edgar grounds out for the second out, and now the Mariners are 4 outs away from dissolving as a franchise. Tino Martinez draws a walk with 2 outs. Buhner singles. And then Alex Diaz walks. So who's going to come up with the bases loaded and 2 outs in the most critical situation in the entire history of the Seattle Mariners so far? Of course, that'll be Doug Strange, the man who hit a pinch hit home run to tie the game in the 9th inning on Election Day. His 4th plate appearance in the series comes against a very tired David Cone, who is still out there.
Hit a pinch hit home run off Jeff Russell to win a game against the Rangers in September. That's a lot.
And Strange steps in on him. Mattingly and Velarde are deep on the right side. Yes, he went too far. Strange forces in young Alex Rodriguez. Refused to lose in Seattle. And now the pitching change.
Mariners have come back to tie this game in the 8th off a walk by Doug Strange. The Yankees now bring on Rivera, and he strikes out Mike Blowers on 3 pitches, makes you think he should have been in earlier. In the top of the 9th, Norm Charlton allows the first 2 Yankees to reach base, and his day was done. So what's Lou Piniella going to do now? Well, let's just say he's about to make the ultimate power move.
There's Piniella discussing right now with Charlton. No, he's had enough. Here comes the big time.
Coming off of 1 day of rest, over 100 pitches being thrown the day before, or a couple days before, Randy Johnson is now pitching in this game. He retires Wade Boggs, Bernie Williams, and Paul O'Neill in order to get out of the jam. And now the game goes into extras as Randy strikes out the side in the 10th. And then in the 11th, Randy Valvardi is on a pinch hit with a man on first, with a man on second and 1 out for the Yankees. And he has a .462 career average against Randy Johnson coming into this at-bat. 18 for 39, in fact. So let's see if this move by Buck Showalter works out.
In the top of the 11th inning, Mike Stanley walked to lead off the inning against Randy Johnson, who was on in relief. Tony Fernandez laid down a sacrifice bunt, which moved Pat Kelly to second and set up Randy Velarde for his big moment.
Base hit. Kelly coming around. He's going to score on Coleman. Yankees lead it now.
So Randy Velarde has just put the Mariners down to their final 3 outs. They might not exist if they can't rally in the next inning. So Jack McDowell is now on to close the series out for the Yankees. And you got Joey Cora, Griffey Jr., and Edgar Martinez due up for the Mariners. So like I just mentioned, Joey Cora steps in to lead it off, trying to set the tone for one more miraculous rally. We've seen so many of them from this team over the last month, and they need it now more than ever.
Jack McDowell on Friday night, working 5 in the 3rd inning, gave up 5 runs, struck out 4, but he walked 4. There's that bunt. And Mattingly, again, he makes the move, and he didn't get it.
We're going to have the same argument. No. Dan Morrison said no way. He went out of the line to avoid the tag.
Mere inches between Cora's jersey and Mattingly's glove is the difference between an out and a leadoff single, which makes all the difference in the world in baseball with momentum. After that, Griffey Jr., of course, hits a single through the hole up the middle to bring Cora to third. It's 1st and 3rd. Nobody out for the best hitter in the league, Edgar Martinez. The Mariners could win the game right here and most likely live on as the Seattle Mariners, or they could crumble and be dead for good. Introducing Fate in Seattle, brought to you by the one and only legendary Dave Niehaus.
Love a base hit into the gap, and they could win it with Junior speed, the stretch. And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on and lined down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here's Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship. I don't believe it. It just continues. My, oh my. Edgar Martinez with a double. Ripped down the left field line, and they are going crazy at the Kingdom.
And there it is. The Mariners have completed the miracle to end all miracles and won this series after being down 2-0 and also being down in all 3 of the games in Seattle. Edgar Martinez, the guy with a game-winning hit, 571, 667, 1,000, 1677 slash line for the series. 2 home runs, 10 RBIs, 6 walks. Ken Griffey Jr. in his first postseason series, 391, 444, 1043, 1488 for a slash line. 5 home runs in the series. Also, Jay Buhner went 458, 500, 625, 1125. And Tino Martinez went 409, 480, 571, 1071. Lastly, Joey Cora, 316, 409, 526, 935. The Mariners have done the unthinkable.
It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. I knew I had, elementary knowledge of the 1995 Mariners. I didn't even realize they were two games to none down and, facing elimination from the very beginning. I didn't realize that they came back from down 5-0 in Game 4. I mean, it's a beautiful baseball story that, I think we're doing justice here by talking about here on the show to be named later.
I mean, how many times did we reference the win probability was stacked against them and they still came back and won the games?
Yeah, and I'm not too familiar with how many times a team will face that, but that has to be near an all-time high of,
especially for that small of a sample size. That was less than a calendar month.
Yeah, I can't imagine what they did, between April and August, It's insane.
So the Mariners are now going on to the American League Championship Series to face the 144 Cleveland Indians. They lost in 6 games. The dream was over. They didn't end up winning the World Series. However, on October 23rd, this is the following statement from the Seattle Times. The Mariners finally get a stadium when the Metropolitan King County Council votes 10-3 to implement a financing package that has been approved by the state legislature in special session October 14th. The plan calls for the Mariners to kick in $45 million, with the $59 million coming from state sales tax credit, $48 million coming from scratch-off state lottery games, from the rest of the country-wide taxes on restaurant, bar tabs, car rentals, and ballpark admissions. The Mariners have won. They have got the new stadium. They're going to live on as the Seattle Mariners, and Safeco Field is coming. So, in legacy, of course, to quite simply put it, this is the team that saved baseball in Seattle. They changed the culture in Seattle baseball forever. And oh, by the way, those fans are still loyal to this day. In 2019, despite a last-place season, the Mariners ranked 7th in the AL in season-wide attendance out of 15 games. The people still care about this team. And the next time you watch a Seattle Mariners game, I want you to think back to 1995, because without this group of guys, you're not watching a Seattle Mariners game.
Yeah, and fittingly, the recording date of this episode, actually 25th anniversary of Ken Griffey breaking that wrist. And basically, I would imagine all hope for that season and ultimately for baseball being in Seattle kind of seemed lost, but the surrounding cast were able to get it together. And I mean, one of the greatest stories for a franchise ever. for a single
It's
season.
absolutely perfect. I mean, I guess the one thing you could have asked for was a World Series, but the fact that they're even alive today is quite a miracle. I think we're a little bit there.
You know, the goal, of course, is to win the World Series every time, but they achieved the ultimate goal, which was saving baseball in their city. And
they changed the culture forever. Like, that team started the tradition of Seattle Mariners baseball, essentially.
And, you know, you look at the rest of Seattle as well. I mean, the Sonics left in 2007. I cannot imagine how bleak things would have looked while, you know, only having the Seahawks over there. You know, now, you know, the Sonics aren't there, but they have baseball.
The Sounders draw some crowds too, though.
Yeah, they have the WNBA team that does very well. And you have the hockey team coming over, you know, I don't know when, but they do have an expansion team starting in Seattle very soon.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, if not for this team, how would sports in Seattle look? And, you know, with this team,
it would very well be different. Like Seattle is now known as a great sports town now. Like, of course, the Seahawks, they have the 12th man, you know, one of the most, literally known as the loudest fan base in the NFL. The Sounders have crazy fans. The Mariners, of course, still draw really good attendance, even if the quality of the product on the field isn't ideal. Like, this team, you could argue, made Seattle into the sports town it is today.
Yeah, because, you know, the 12th man, I didn't really hear, you know, they weren't really making rounds until like the late 2000s decade.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you know, when they started winning championships. So, you know, 95 Mariners probably kind of sparked that. And as you said, changed, you know, baseball culture and changed sports culture in Seattle.
So that wraps up the beautiful story of the 1995 Seattle Mariners. It was an honor to cover this team. And by the way, I would be remiss to mention this. John Boyce and Alex Rubenstein of SB Nation recently wrote and narrated a 3-hour, 40-minute, 6-episode-long documentary about the entire history of the Seattle Mariners, going all the way back to when the franchise started and even before that. I would highly, highly recommend checking it out. It's on YouTube. It's free. It was unbelievable to watch, and that was a big inspiration about how passionate I was about covering this team.
Yeah, and when did the first episode drop for that? Because, I mean...
It was, like, right when the quarantine started, and, like, I think it was on opening day, actually, March 26th.
But, you know, to give yourself credit, before they did anything on the 95 Mariners...
I already picked them as the team I wanted to do for that, yeah.
Picked them, you know,
Exactly.
And you had competition with the 2001 team, so good on you for recognizing that.
Thank you. So now it is time for our favorite part of the show. Chris, I believe I picked first this time.
Yeah, let's go. So, I forgot to mention it on the Ted Williams part of the episode. But because, you know, basically the rundown, because there is no baseball going on as of now, that could change with some better proposals by the owners and stuff. But because there's nothing going on, there's really nothing to talk about, you know, no free agent signings or anything. We're going history-based. We're picking one team and one player to talk about every week. Now we're breaking it down into 2 different parts of one episode. So I picked 30 players. Daniel picked 30 teams. We each pick a number assigned to either a team or player. It's completely random. And this past week, it landed on Ted Williams and the 1995 Mariners. So Daniel will decide the fate of our next Wednesday episode by picking whatever number between 1 and 25 right now.
All right, I turned 20 this week, so I think it's only fitting that I choose player number 20.
Player number 20. So I remember last week you talked about how, you know, I didn't know we were going to go this far back, you know, week with Ted Williams. With number 20, you have selected a player that Babe Ruth said he was the best hitter that he ever saw. And unfortunately, his career got cut short, and he's actually not in the Hall of Fame. next Wednesday, we are doing Shoeless Joe Jackson.
Wow. Okay. Wow. This is going to be an interesting one.
This is going to be an interesting one. We're going to have to watch 8 Men Out, the movie.
Yes.
So we are doing Shoeless Joe Jackson for the next episode. It's probably going to be a little shorter because, his career was a little shorter. But
and there's not that much documentation on him either, other than, the 1919 Black Sox.
Definitely no video, for sure. Yeah, it's our earliest one yet. And I'm going to go ahead for the team we are doing for next Friday's episode. I'm going to go with number 22.
Number 22. Okay. This is like the 1995 Seattle Mariners. They were a team that sort of brought back a winning culture for their city. And I'm talking about the 2013 Pittsburgh Pirates.
Wow. The 2013 Pirates.
The Johnny Cueto game. You got Russell Martin and Marlon Byrd going deep in the wild card game.
Yeah, this is a fun one. You got Garrett Cole's rookie season.
This is going to be interesting. I'm excited to see what comes of this one.
So, yeah, and that closes the book on the second part of episode 38 of the show to be named later. Of course, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, as of this date, we are not on Apple Podcasts. So if you're listening on Spotify, go check out our YouTube channel. Watch the videos with us on YouTube. That YouTube channel is called the STBNL with Chris Gianta and Daniel Curran. And then, of course, if you're on YouTube and you just found out we are on Spotify as of this date, go follow our podcast, STBNL with Chris Gianta and Daniel Curran.
Yes.
Follow us on social media. Follow me at Chris_Gianta on Twitter. Follow Daniel at Daniel_Curran on Twitter. And that closes the book on Ted Williams and, for this part of the episode, the 1995 Seattle Mariners. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys next Wednesday, where we will be talking about Shoeless Joe Jackson, and also next Friday, when we will be talking about the 2013 Pittsburgh Pirates. See you next week.